The other important joke for me is one that's usually attributed to Groucho Marx, but I think it appears originally in Freud's Wit and its Relation to the Unconscious. And it goes like this, I'm paraphrasing. I would never want to belong to any club that would have someone like me for a member. That's the key joke of my adult life in terms of my relationships with women.
Hello and welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where each week we enter the world of a great film. We explore its themes, the history, the filmmaking, and the influence it has on us today. My name is Steve Morris, and I'm a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Rocha. I'm a writer, producer, host, and voiceover artist here in San Diego, California.
And today we're digging into one of the great films of all time, also a film that's going to get us into some issues that are somewhat complicated. And of course, that's Annie Hall, which we're discussing in honor of the great Diane Keaton. But we couldn't be making the Cine-Files without our incredible supporters on Patreon. And right at this moment, we are offering the first ever holiday sale in the history of the Cine-Files. Every single person going to Patreon right now can get any of the tiers for 25% off.
That's amazing. Is there 25% off? We've never done this. We were inspired by the Black Friday sales, and we thought this could be fun to do for some of our fans who have been maybe hesitant to join the Patreon, or were thinking about it but not quite ready to make the jump, or want to give our show as a Patreon gift to somebody who loves films. It's a great idea, Steve. Is there a code that they need to enter in order to do this?
There is a very simple code. It is 9BCA3. That's 9. B as in Baker, C as in Charlie, A as in Alpha, and the number 3. You enter that in on any tier that you want to join, including the year-long tiers, which means if you sign up for a year, you get the discount for the annual subscription and the discount 25% off. This is a great deal. And honestly, what better stocking stuffer can you give the film lover in your family than the gift of the Cine-Files?
Yeah, and the other way you can support us here on the show is when you listen to the commercials as you're listening to our episodes and you hear of a product or a service that you want to try from a company that supports us here on the channel. We'd love it if you did that and used our code, because A, you get a big discount on trying out that product or service, but you also indicate to that company that they should keep coming back and support us every month with their ad dollars. So we'd love it if you could do that as well for the products and services that speak to you.
So as we said, we're breaking down Annie Hall today in honor of Diane Keaton. This is our first time doing a Woody Allen movie since Crimes and Misdemeanors, which I think might have been in our second year of doing the show.
Yeah.
And, obviously, Me Too happened while you and I were doing the show. We've dealt with many changes in the world. We've struggled with sometimes how we were going to address them. And, feeling a bit nervous about talking again about Woody Allen, a person who, at the very least, has done some extremely unsavory things. And it's a damn good chance has done some exceptionally terrible things.
Yeah.
And it's sort of the thing on how we talk about this. And I wanted to share my feelings at this moment.
Sure.
They're basically, there are a lot of people, many great, talented people who have, been canceled or had scandals around them, and we've had to reassess how we feel about them. I remember when we had Kim Masters on the show to do broadcast news, we were kind of talking about this topic, and she obviously, this is a big part of her career, or these sorts of stories. And her response, which I really liked, was, we don't take art off the walls. And I like that a lot. And I've been thinking about it. And I've been thinking about, in particular, the two people that really hurt me the most when we began to find out what these people were really like. And they are Woody Allen and Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby was my childhood. I memorized those albums, and he was like a hero to me. And Woody Allen was a really important filmmaker for me in a lot of ways. And the one difference between the two of them, and that's why I wanted to kind of bring this up, and maybe that's sort of framing how I'm thinking about this, talking about Woody, is what Bill Cosby presented to us was, I am America's dad. I am the best guy in the world. I am, and in many ways, there are many great qualities about Bill Cosby. And I would direct people's attention to the We Gotta Talk About Cosby documentary from W. Kamau Bell, which is excellent. Woody did not present himself that way. Woody presented himself, sorry, let me say it again. But underneath Bill Cosby's America's Dad thing was a horrible rapist committing terrible, terrible crimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Woody, on the other hand, presented himself as a fucked up guy.
Yeah.
Neurotic, insecure, selfish, jealous, angry, obsessed with sex. He put a lot of his stuff out there and is in his films, which both makes revisiting them very powerful and way more upsetting. You know, it's like with Cosby, there's this disconnect between what he presented and the realities underneath. Woody, it's different. And it just, and this is why I want to bring this whole thing up, is like, when we did the Civil War documentary, one of the big revelations to me was that there were people that were unbelievably brilliant generals who were the bad guys on the bad guys. But if I were teaching the history of military strategy, I wouldn't omit Nathan Bedford Forrest, despite the fact that he's like the founder of the Ku Klux Klan and a horrible person. If I were doing an art history course, I wouldn't omit Picasso,
right?
But it's because he's an asshole. I don't think we could talk about film without actually talking about Woody Allen, despite the things that have been revealed about who he is.
Yeah, I don't. Obviously, I don't make because I'm not you. I don't make the thing between Cosby and Allen a comparison, because for me, they're equally bad in different ways. You know, but I take your points.
They're both bad. I'm not saying they're not. Yeah,
no, I know you're not, and I'm just saying that to me, the way I look at it, because I don't have the connection to Woody that you clearly have, and so for me, I look at it as objectively on the outside. But I will say that separating the art from the artist is always a personal thing. And so for some of you who may not be excited that we're doing this because of your own personal feelings about Woody Allen, I think Steve and I both say we respect that. We appreciate that. We are going to speak about the movie, and we're not going to, I don't think we're going to be like, boy, it's such a shame what happened to Woody. It's more a matter of like, we're going to talk about the film and the writing and the direction and all of that that's involved with the movie. That's our approach to it. But yeah, separating the art from the artist is always difficult. I mean, the Michael Jackson stuff, and I know some people say that it's not true. No, that's true. They all recanted and all of that kind of stuff. But we don't know what actually went on behind the scenes. There's a lot of allegations. So there are people that we confront and have to come to terms with. I mean, and I think this is the thing that we have to look at. So our approach to this is much more about honoring the work and less about honoring the person. And I think that's how, if for anybody who's maybe concerned about how we're going to approach this, that's the angle that we're going at when we're looking at this. And I also think the difference between Steve and I, which is what makes our show so good, is that I actually am excited to talk about this and not nervous, because I don't mind running into minefields, and Steve knows this. And Steve is much more cautious, like, dude, we should probably, pull the stick out, kind of sift through the dirt and see where the mines are. And I'm
delicately tiptoeing.
Yes. And I'm more like, okay, let's go. And so, and I like this as a challenge for us, Steve, because we've resisted to talk about Woody for a long time. As Steve pointed out, all these things happened. And so we had to have conversations with ourselves about should we? But well, I also think, and Steve, I think might opine on this and feel the same way, is that it feels like that angle went too far. And now we have to find our way back to the middle, where we can talk about people who have maybe quote unquote been canceled, and we can talk about their work and not necessarily praise that person for who they are as a person. And so that's, I think, is important now that more and more people are kind of waking up to that, being like, okay, we went a little too far. We got to, it's got to be okay to still be able to watch The Cosby Show if you want, and not think, well, if you watch The Cosby Show, you're there, therefore you're tacitly supporting what this man did to all these women, allegedly, because in the end, everything was overturned. So I think it's fair to be like, well, no, I want to be able to appreciate this. And again, it's all personal. And some of you have people that you don't listen to or don't watch anymore because of personal feelings about the things that you found out about them. And some of you don't. And so that's kind of how our approach to this. So I'm looking forward to this because I haven't seen this movie in a very long time. And I watched it in preparation for our conversation. And I'm really excited about some of the things that Woody does in this movie. And I actually appreciated the film more this time around than maybe I'd had when I watched it in years past.
It is a groundbreaking film.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just, obviously, if you go to most humans on the planet and say, which movie do you love more, Annie Hall or Star Wars? They're going to pick Star Wars and be pissed off that Annie Hall won Best Picture. But
right.
Annie Hall is as groundbreaking a film as Star Wars.
Ooh, wow.
It really
what a
is.
statement.
100%.
like
I
it.
believe it is. I think it's less copied than Star Wars.
Sure.
I mean, Annie Hall is not copied. Star Wars is copied everywhere. But the reason we came to this and decided to do it was because, of course, we lost the great and wonderful Diane Keaton a couple of months ago. And so I wanted to give some quick bio of her. She was born Diane Hall and was nicknamed Annie, which is where the title of this film comes from.
Wow, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Okay.
I didn't realize she's from LA. I think there's so much about this movie that that this is Woody and Diane Keaton, which it isn't. So I just assumed she was from Wisconsin. She's not. She's from LA. Her mother won the Mrs. Los Angeles pageant for homemakers. And
Awesome.
Diane was very young at the time, and just the theatricality of this event and the contest and the lights and all this stuff is what gave her the acting bug.
Yeah.
That experience.
That's amazing. Wow. Okay.
Her hero was Katharine Hepburn.
Of course.
Which I think is really interesting considering where she ends up later in her career,
Yes. Right.
Acted in high school. By the way, Keaton is her mother's maiden name. That's where the name Diane Keaton comes from. She goes to New York to be an actress. She studies Meisner, which is one of the great acting schools out of the post-method era. She does a thing. Jack Nicholson said this about her. I wasn't able to confirm it anywhere else. But during this time studying Meisner, she started not just memorizing her lines, but memorizing the entire script. And that was a thing, according to Jack Nicholson, she continued to do for all her movies. So if he went up on a line, she knew his line.
Interesting. Okay.
Her first big break was as an understudy for the 1968 Broadway premiere of Hair.
Yes. And I think I remember the story, like she refused to be naked. Am I wrong?
She refused to be naked.
Yes.
Which by the way, according to their contract with the actors or whatever, it was totally optional.
Yes.
But she was the only one who refused. And then she auditioned for a little play by a young playwright named Woody Allen called Play It Again, Sam.
Yeah.
And at first they rejected her because she's 2 to 3 inches taller than Woody Allen. And then finally they decided, no, we had to do it. And she received a Tony nomination. Play It Again, Sam is a really funny play.
Yes.
It's a very good play for your high school to do. It's funny. It's straightforward. It's neat. And of course, Play It Again, Sam leads her to get cast in one of the most important films of all time, which of course is playing Kay in The Godfather.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've talked about her in that film, both films, I think as well. Yeah.
And Coppola cast her really because he wanted someone to contrast with all the Italian, mob members, to have this very American, very quirky, very funny actor in this part as contrast.
Yeah.
And so she does Godfather. She does Godfather 2. And she also has this run with Woody Allen, Sleeper, Love and Death, Play It Again, Sam, which was the film was not directed by Woody. But what's interesting about Diane Keaton is she's one of those people who is perfectly happy to do some wacky comedy and then go do some heavy, intense films. Yeah. Things like Looking for Mr. Goodbar. Right. And she does, the last movie she does in this run is Manhattan,
right?
Which, gorgeous movie, unbelievably well made. Whoa.
That is a tougher sell than Annie Hall, in my opinion.
Very tough to deal with. And of course, she had a relationship with Woody on and off during this time, remained very, very close friends. And then she had a relationship with her next big director, which is Warren Beatty, because they go on to do Reds.
Yeah.
Which I watched recently. I feel like you haven't seen it.
Never seen Reds still. And I'll have to remedy that if we ever tackle it on the show.
I don't know that it is totally worth your time.
It's 3 hours.
It is not perfect. It is very flawed, I think.
Oh, okay.
All the performances are amazing. And I think if you took Diane Keaton's performance in Reds and Diane Keaton's performance in Annie Hall, this is a great actor. I mean, her performance in Reds is astounding. You should watch it. I would love, and we should do a short. I would love to talk to you about it.
Okay.
There are things in it that are really cool, and things in it where you're like, what is this movie? What's going on here?
Yeah.
And does a whole bunch of movies throughout the late 70s and into the 80s. And then, she has these mini booms, because then she has Baby Boom in 87, Father of the Bride in 91, Godfather 3 comes out, reunites with Woody Allen for Manhattan Murder Mystery, which is, largely forgettable. And then we have the First Wives Club.
What I think is fascinating about Diane is that she has metamorphosized or evolved, I guess you would say, as an actress as the years have gone on. But as you say so well, she's never shied away from playing comedies. This is something that she loves to come back to, even in a film, even some of the films that are middling, like Morning Glory, the one with her, Harrison Ford, and Rachel McAdams. Not a great movie, but her scenes are so great and watchable in the things that she is doing. And the thing is, as you get older and you really understand movies and understand acting and understand performances, you can reappreciate someone that when you were younger and didn't have the knowledge that you have and how you look at someone's work in a different way. And I really, going back over the last few weeks and watching some of Diane Keaton's scenes, this is a deceptively incredible actress. And the way she can change herself when you look at something like The Godfather, this quietly reserved woman in a loveless in a marriage with a man she loves, but who is not willing to give up the things that make him who he is in order to give her the better life in terms of a happier, loving life. You see the difference between that and Annie Hall, who is this young actress who is at times flighty, but is really kind of savoring the world everywhere she goes and isn't overthinking the world everywhere she goes. So there's a purity, simplicity to that. And then you see something like Morning Glory, which she's much more, I've lived through the wars of what men are like and all of this kind of stuff. And her defense of being a morning show host versus a serious, it's almost got slightly Annie Hall, like getting back at Woody's approach to Alvy Singer with Annie Hall in something like Morning Glory. So she's so amazing when you watch, or Baby Boom when she's breaking ground as a woman who has to decide between her career and raising a child. All of these things, she's kind of made this incredible, like her own path, incredible path through the world of acting. And by the end, a lot of young actresses, when she passed, said all the things she said about Katharine Hepburn about her. And I think that's a great legacy, that you're inspired by a great, and by the time you leave the career that you leave because you've passed on, other actresses are talking about you the way you talked about Katharine Hepburn, because you've inspired them and motivated them to become who they became as actresses. And she is a feminist actress, which Katharine Hepburn was as well, So there's a legacy of that.
And that's particularly true, by the way, if you look at Reds. Reds is also a very feminist movie.
Yeah.
And I think she's also, there's the actors who are chameleons, the Daniel Day-Lewis's or Robert De Niro's. And then there's the people who are who they are. Yeah. Diane Keaton brings her Diane Keatonness to all of her roles.
Yeah.
But they're all different characters.
Yes.
Kay and Annie Hall are very, very different, but there's still that particular energy she has that's really unique. Yep. John, how did you first come to Annie Hall?
I came to Annie Hall about maybe 15, 16 years ago on TCM. It was one of those things I was going. Remember, I've told you this. Oh, sorry. I've talked about this with Steve and some of you guys on the show in times past. Like, occasionally I used to go on these runs where I'd be like, okay, well, I need to check off some of these stuff off the top 100 lists. And I would, back in the old days of TiVo, you could go ahead about 3 weeks on the TiVo with the programming on TCM and just schedule movies to record at the time that they were going to record on TCM. And I think you can do that in some streaming services nowadays, but I don't quite know. So I remember that's when I had to watch. And because I wasn't necessarily a Woody guy, like it's not really who I would necessarily tend to watch, a really thin, nebbish guy from New York. It's not really a guy I would necessarily connect to. And then I watched it, and I thought the writing was fantastic. I thought the performances were really interesting, and he made me laugh. And it's what kind of turned me into finding more of stuff from Woody. And I like listened to his stand-ups on YouTube. I just was very impressed by him as a performer. And so that kind of opened the door to Woody Allen for me watching this movie. And I just remember really enjoying it. And then going on a run of Woody with Manhattan and a few of these other ones, and Crimes and Misdemeanors, which of course we did on the show. So yeah, it was 15, 20 years ago when I saw it for the first time.
So how, some of our stories of how we came to a film is I rented it or I saw it in the theater. Yeah. And every once in a while we have a few stories, which are the really good stories. I've been waiting to tell this story forever, which is,
here we go, folks.
In 1977, I was 9 years old and took the greatest trip of my youth which was we took a big trip to Alaska for like 3 weeks, and we went up above the Arctic Circle, and we saw Denali, and we also were on a cruise ship for like 4 or 5 days going through Glacier Bay. And here's the thing on the cruise ship that no one had told me before. There's a movie theater on the cruise ship.
Yeah.
And the movie theater played movies all day for free.
What? All day?
All day. They'll just put one movie after another.
Wow.
And so my parents would come down to my sister and I, who were in the movie theater, and say, listen, we're passing some beautiful glaciers. There's elks and caribou and all that. And I'm sitting there going, there's a movie theater that plays movies all day for free. The movies that they played, and I'm forgetting one of them. My sister will be mad that I'm not remembering it off the top of my head, but the movies they played were Fun with Dick and Jane.
Oh, yeah.
Hitchcock's last film, Family Plot, which scared the crap out of me. I was 9, or I was 8. I hadn't even turned 9 yet. And Annie Hall. And so I watched Annie Hall many, many, many times at 8 years old because the movies played all day. Yeah. And so I watched it then, and I watched this movie a lot. And it's funny rewatching it now, and particularly I know everyone's hearing this weird thing I'm doing called the Faith Project, but like the way I can't begin to tell you how influential this movie is on me. I mean, it's like, because, and this is formically a very different kind of film because it doesn't care at all about reality. Yeah. It goes, am I going to talk to the camera? Are we going to go into animation? Are these kids going to talk to the camera? Am I going to talk to strangers on the street? Am I going to bring Marshall McLuhan in? Whatever Woody's mind wants to do, you could just break any of the rules that do it. And I don't know if my 8-year-old brain like was reckoning with this idea. But this is, if you look at the assistants, there are moments where people turn to cameras, we go into fantasies. There's like this idea of, it is much more like theater, by the way, because theater, it's very normal for an actor to turn to the audience and say something, or to walk from one scene directly into another scene, or have people comment on but it's not common in film. And I love it. Yeah. I love not being bound by those kinds of realities, you know?
Breaking the fourth wall. And I would say the difference, how can I say this correctly? Steve and I have the same sensibilities as young kids, but in different financial circumstances. My family.
Well, I was on a cruise ship. Yeah. So
my family could have never afforded a cruise ship or gone to a trip to Alaska for 3 weeks. However, we would go to like the beach for 2 or 3 days. And where was John Rocha instead of sitting out on the beach? He was sitting in the hotel room watching HBO because we didn't have HBO, couldn't afford HBO. So I would watch movies all day. And then my mom and dad would come in and go, you got to come out to the beach. You got to come out. So I'd have to go for an hour and then I'd run right back to watch movies. So I hear you, brother. Like when you love movies, everything else outside of movies is not as exciting as watching movies, whether in a theater or in a hotel room. There and not even a great hotel room, and in the old school boob tubes that you would watch back in the 80s. So yeah, I hear you, brother. In the 70s as well. I hear you, brother. I appreciate that. Actually, I would totally sit and watch movies.
You totally would.
9 years old on a cruise ship instead of looking at a new iceberg, whatever, you know? Yeah.
I have this weird image in my head of me dressed as little Lord Fauntleroy on my cruise ship, waving at little John Rocha sitting on the beach.
No, it's just, I mean, you weren't making the money. It's just that you were born into. So like, yeah, but the sensibilities are universal. Like the idea,
exactly.
Even if you're on a vacation, the chance to watch movies that you've never seen before is more interesting than going to see nature or hanging out at the beach, you know?
Yep. So in order to give you some pre-production, I must go all the way back to 1919.
Ooh, wow.
I mean, not really. It's a little bit of a stretch, but 1919 is the year that the 4 of the most powerful people in Hollywood, Mary Pickford, Charlie Chaplin, D.W. Griffith, and Douglas Fairbanks, formed the company UA.
Oh, yeah.
United Artists. And the whole idea of United Artists is we're the artists. And we're going to be in control of making our own art. We're going to be in control of the finances. We're going to be in control of the distribution. We're not going to have to deal with those evil studio heads anymore, and everything will go great. And of course, United Artists never went great.
Yeah,
It's always had problems. And in my experience, and I think we had this conversation recently about the theater. Oh, it was when you told the story about the theater company you work for that got snowed in out camping.
Oh.
And we were talking about just the ridiculousness that happens when the artists are in charge of the asylum. And there was a bit of that with UA to the point where from like the mid 30s, because it continued to exist until the 50s, it was losing like $100,000 a year.
Wow.
And Chaplin and I think Griffin and Fairbanks are dead at this point.
Yeah.
Mary Pickford and Charlie Chaplin are still alive. They own the lion's share. They're not speaking to each other. They hate each other at this point. And UA is in deep, deep shit. And there is a corporate takeover in 1951 when Arthur Krim and Robert Benjamin start running UA. And basically, they actually try to ascribe to the philosophy created by the founders in the sense of giving more freedom to filmmakers than the studios. And this is 1950, so we're starting the beginning of the decline of the studio system. And UA becomes a company that's really about production and distribution, but they're not being a studio. So they have no stages, they don't have any of that overhead, and they're making movies much more how movies get made today, which is financing a production company and so forth.
Right.
And they do really, really well. And UA starts to be a successful company.
Wow.
And they start making deals with filmmakers. And when Woody Allen starts coming up in the mid 60s, it's particularly Arthur Krim really recognizes this is someone they want to be in business with. And they make a deal. Woody's agents or managers are Rollins and Joffe. And they make some real good deals for Woody Allen. The deal that they make is that they're going to put up the money for production.
Yeah.
If the movie goes $1 over the budget, then Rollins, Joffe, and Woody Allen are responsible for any overages.
Oh. Which
is very unusual in terms of a deal, and most people don't want to do that because they don't want to go, you don't want to spend your own money.
Yeah.
Woody is a very, very efficient filmer. Almost never goes over budget or over schedule. So it's a good deal for him. And from this, he gets, as soon as the movie turns a profit, 50% of the net belongs to Woody Allen. And they had, for a decade working with UA, this was extremely successful with Sleeper, everything you always want to know about Sex We're Afraid to Ask, Love and Death, Take the Money and Run. All these movies are hit comedies, and they're doing really, really well. So Woody Allen did have a few important requirements in his deal with UA. One of them was that he really didn't want his movies to ever be played on television or on airplanes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep, which relates certainly to things we're talking about today in terms of how is the filmmaker's vision. But the other thing, which is far more important, is Woody works into his deal at United Artists, and this is mostly his deal for the majority of his career, that he has final cut.
Wow. It's such a rarity, right? It's such a rarity. But that's why Woody gets the budgets that he got over the years. And from what I understand, he always came under budget and he finished ahead of schedule. And so you can have a little more cachet with the studios if you consistently do stuff like that. Eastwood does that all the time as well,
I mean, so think about what this deal is that none of these are huge budget movies, so relatively small budgets, but the rule is if they have overages that Woody Allen and his producers have to pay the overages. That's very unusual, but as you said, he doesn't generally go over budget.
Yeah.
And then you add to that he gets final cut of the film and 50% of the profits. So this is a phenomenal deal. This is the deal. This is the deal all filmmakers want.
Amazing. You got to give respect. You got to give it up, man.
Yeah.
See, if you don't deal with big budgets, you can make films like this and kind of get away with it, so to speak.
Well, this is why I keep saying, and I said it when we just had our discussion about the potential Warner Brothers takeover, is I want, instead of $200 million movies, I want $10 million movies or $20 million movies, because then you could do this. Then you can make Annie Hall. Right. And filmmakers can have these kinds of deals. And a bunch of them won't make money and some of them will. And it's a hell of a lot better bet than The Flash, And then, by the way, Arthur Krim leaves UA to go off and find a little company named Orion.
Oh, yeah.
And UA is desperate to keep Woody at UA. And finally, he brings Woody over to Orion. And there's this, I never realized that Orion, which to me in the 80s was it was going to be a good movie. If you saw that Orion logo.
Yeah.
So he's working with his writing partner is Marshall Brickman, who is the head writer for Johnny Carson. This is the guy that wrote the Karnak jokes. I mean, and originally this movie starts out with Annie and Alvy as characters in a murder mystery where a philosophy professor has committed suicide and people aren't sure if it's really a murder. And of course, that philosophy professor that commits suicide shows up in Crimes and Misdemeanors. The murder mystery is actually what later becomes Manhattan Murder Mystery.
Oh.
But this is where Annie Hall starts.
Right.
And they're going to tell all these sort of different stories about these characters. And then they decide it's not really working. You know what'll make this work? Let's turn it into a period piece. So now they're doing a period piece murder mystery with a philosophy professor, I think set in Boston. And they're all set to get going. And Woody is writing. He calls up Marshall Brickman. And I could just hear Woody Allen go, do we really want to bother with all those costumes and sets? And if we have to, then we'd have to shoot in Boston, which means I'm not in New York. And this doesn't really seem like fun at all. So they throw all of that out. And decide to make it contemporary. And to be clear, the main story is not the relationship with Annie Hall. That's just one story in the whole thing. He wrote the first script in 4 days.
Wow.
People like that really piss me off.
Doesn't mean it was good initially. Yeah.
And then the way they did this was he writes a draft, sends it up to Marshall Brickman. He does a rewrite, sends it back to Woody, does a rewrite. It goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Wow. And this is a big moment for Woody Allen because he always wanted to tell stories that were more than just broad, ridiculous comedies. I mean, Sleeper and Bananas and Take the Money and Run are ridiculous comedies. Right. And he wanted to do more, and he was always really, really scared. And this is the first movie where he said, no, I can deal with actually more human stuff than I have done before.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Very influenced by Ingmar Bergman, Scenes from a Wedding, very influenced by Fellini's 8.5. And as they keep working, some of those other subplots fall away. By the way, the working title for Woody Allen is anhedonia, which is the medical term for the inability to experience pleasure. Now, if you think that title is no good, would you like to hear some of Marshall Brickman's titles?
Sure. I love it.
Here they are. Title number 1, It Had to Be Jew. Title the second, a roller coaster named Desire. And the third, and maybe this is the winner, Me and My Goy.
Oh boy.
Yeah, these are some terrible titles.
These are play titles, not movie titles.
Well, what they're jokes from a Carson monologue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's so funny because obviously Marshall Brickman writes great jokes. There is a flavor to a Woody Allen line and there are so many of them in here that I just marvel at just how goddamn good a joke writer he is.
Well, how many people get a chance to frickin' go back and forth with the head writer of the Johnny Carson show?
Right.
Like that is such a leg up on so many other writers and comedians who were probably writing relationship films at the time, because the 70s was very big about exploring relationships and gender dynamics because it was changing so much in the 1970s. So I'm sure there were a lot of writers who would have loved to have had Marshall Brickman as a sounding board who was rewriting their script to punch up the script even more, So
they started shooting in May of 76. It sounds like they did, and one thing we should say, Woody Allen didn't talk about his movies. There are no commentary tracks. There's no behind the scenes. There's just it just isn't, this is not a rich tapestry of information about how this movie was made.
Yeah.
But from what I can tell, I don't think it was shot sequentially. They shot it over 10 months.
Oh, yeah.
But I think they shot for a while and then stopped and shot some more, but I'm not 100% sure.
Right.
One last thing before we jump into the film is this autobiographical? Woody says this character is not him at all. And this is not autobiographical, despite the fact that it's a Jewish stand-up comic, who started as a joke writer, became a playwright, dates Diane Keaton. I mean, there's so much.
Cool. And is a fan of the Knicks, which Woody Allen is a massive fan of the New York Knicks basketball team for decades. Yeah.
So, whereas Diane Keaton says that it's definitely partially based on their relationship, and the character of Annie is partially a version of her.
Yeah.
And this is, but Woody says that there are other characters in other films that are actually much more, and this gets us into this weird thing of, am I watching a character or am I watching Woody?
Well,
and it's hard to know.
Agreed. And also because of the style, the way the film is done with breaking the fourth wall, looking at the camera constantly, talking about these things, they're all essentially indicating to you that this is a version of Woody Allen, right? And especially at the time of the 1970s when people were very much typecasting other people, no one would be confused. No one would be faulted for confusing Woody with Alvy Singer, because it does feel like an autobiographical film in many ways.
Speaking of which, shall we get into the film?
Oh, all right. It's already time. Okay, let's do it.
I mean, if you need another minute.
No, I'm ready.
There's an old joke. Two elderly women are at a Catskill Mountain resort, and one of them says, "Boy, the food at this place is really terrible." The other one says, "Yeah, I know, and such small portions."
So first of all, not only is it a perfect joke.
Yeah.
But it's and what's his next line?
That's essentially how I feel about life.
What does that mean? What is the meaning of this joke?
Well, first of all, I love this joke because you know me. I'm an old Catskills guy, and that's a Catskills joke, and I love it. But it's just that it's a foreshadowing of the message of the movie, I guess, or the message of the character of Alvy Singer is that he's going to complain no matter what it is. Mm-hmm. So the food tastes bad, and what's even worse is they only gave us a little bit. Why would you care about the amount of food if the food sucks? Why would you want more of a food that sucks? But he takes offense that A, the food tastes badly, and then B, they only gave me a little bit of it. So he's going to find offense in whatever it is that he is given because he's never satisfied. And so to me, this is a window into Alvy Singer's character, aka Woody Allen, right off the bat. He is essentially foreshadowing. He's almost like a Greek chorus, laying out. He's almost like the chorus at the beginning of Henry V, laying out what you're about to witness, what you're about to see, if you can read in between the lines of the comments that he's making.
There is a term I've brought up every once in a while on the show, and I first brought it up very early when we did When Harry Met Sally, which is the idea of a thesis movie. And what I mean by it is a movie that presents a question or an idea right at the beginning and then spends the rest of the movie exploring that question.
Yeah.
When Harry Met Sally is obviously men and women can't be friends because the sex part always gets in the way.
Right.
Watching
Annie Hall this time around, Steve, I could not help but see all the When Harry Met Sally scenes that were influenced by what you see in Annie Hall. Like there's so much that influences When Harry Met Sally.
And he puts it right at the beginning. Essentially, he is the author of his own misery.
Yes.
Like he's created a psychological trap and it is not get outable,
Yeah.
And then he goes on to joke number 2.
The other important joke for me.
So that sentence right there, I just want to pause on it. The important joke for me.
Right.
Like most people wouldn't think that thought, here's an important joke for me. But he had, and this is one of the other things we'll get into, despite the fact that he's a miserable person.
Yeah.
Humor is so central to every single, his way of interacting with the world is jokes,
Yeah. Well, and here's me walking in the minefield from listening to a lot of, Jewish comedians. They speak about the fact that humor is their weapon in the world, their defense mechanism in the world, because Jews experience so much anti-Semitism and, of course, the Holocaust and so many things that they endure in life because of simply being Jewish, that humor is a bone and they're not, and let's make it clear, and I'm not trying to be stereotypical, but they're not really known for being athletes. And yes, there's an occasion like Goldberg or Hank Greenberg's for sure. But
don't forget Sandy Koufax.
Oh, Sandy Koufax is, of course, the greatest dodger of them all. But like there is, it's not what Jewish people are known for. So they have to develop.
How dare you? How dare you disparage my athletic ability?
I apologize, but and so they develop this, and so you see that as a defense mechanism, and so it's honed so well. And that may be one of the reasons why I love Jewish comedy so much, or comedies that focus on Jewish characters so much, or movies that focus on Jewish, because it really is a fascinating thing to develop that as a defense mechanism in the world and as a way to navigate the world,
Well, I mean, there is a real misunderstanding about what humor is.
Yes.
Because people think of laughter, oh, that's this thing we do when we're happy. It's like, oh no.
Yeah.
Most humor is about dealing with pain.
Yes. 100%.
We laugh, just think of a Ben Stiller movie, think of There's Something About Mary. It's all about pain.
Oh, Ben is completely influenced by Woody Allen, for God's sakes.
Oh, of course he is. Absolutely. Absolutely. So back to our jokes.
Yes.
The other important joke for me is one that's usually attributed to Groucho Marx, but I think it appears originally in Freud's wit and its relation to the unconscious.
We're so establishing a Woody realm here.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, because, I am an intellectual Jew, I there are many of the book, like Denial of Death, I've read more than once, so like speaking my language.
And it goes like this, I'm paraphrasing. I would never want to belong to any club that would have someone like me for a member. That's the key joke of my adult life in terms of my relationships with women.
Again, foreshadowing that he can't respect any woman that would actually love him. And this is a key psychological thing that you are, when I did therapy, to explore my issues with relationships and why I was choosing the women I was choosing, is like when you come to a place where you're constantly choosing bad people to be your partners, you have to look at the lowest common denominator, and that's yourself. It doesn't mean you're to blame, but it does mean that you are making choices and you need to be aware of the choices you're making so you can deconstruct why that's happening and reconstruct a way to make healthier choices in partners for yourself going forward. And one of the things they talk about, one of the things you learn about, is this idea of you can develop a sense of, if you have a lot of self-hatred, you can develop a sense of distaste for someone who loves you. The more they love you, the more you dislike them because you don't love yourself, so you can't respect their opinion of loving you. It's completely a mind fuck, but it's absolutely what can happen for some people in relationships. I don't love myself. How can you love me so much? I can't trust your judgment. Therefore, I'm going to judge you for loving me because you can't possibly be correct. And so there's a lot of that. And so I think that joke speaks to that from the great Groucho Marx.
I mean, or Freud in his wit in relation to the unconscious.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's why think of where we are. We're 30, 40 seconds into this movie.
Yeah.
He's told two jokes, and already you're going like, whoa, what's going on here?
Right.
And then, he talks a little bit about, he's growing older, he's turned 40, talks about who he's going to become. And then there's just a direct transition. Like a complete actor-made transition into talking about Annie. Yeah. And what's interesting, what I think it's such brilliant writing is what it tells me in the way that this happens is that he's actually been talking about Annie the whole time. He said all these other things, and now he's saying what's really on his mind.
This is a movie about a breakup told in a bunch of cobbled together scenes.
Yeah.
And once you understand that that's what the movie's about, it makes it such a more interesting watch in terms of how the construction of the film, what scenes were used that made the cut, how long you stay in the scenes, the time jumps in between the scenes, whether backwards or forwards in the relationship. And I think this opening is brilliant. It's a way of Woody connecting with the audience, and he knows he's about to play a character that people aren't going to like because of some of his overinflated sense of himself and then massive insecurities. But to start off with self-deprecating jokes is a way to endear yourself to the audience. And it's just especially if you're about to present a character that's not that great. So you create a little bit of goodwill with the audience if the jokes work, and they are more willing to go along with you on this journey to see where it all ends up. So I think it's a very smart way to start this movie.
Well, as delusional as Alvy is, and he could be really fucked up in the course of this film, he does have enough self-awareness to be looking back, to make that joke.
Yeah, no one says this is me in two jokes if you're not self-aware. Great point.
Yeah. Well, and this is the weird meta quality of this movie, is that structurally, this movie is there's a character that is very much like Woody Allen, and structurally, this movie is designed to make that character look terrible over and over and over again for flaws that, at least to some degree, we know the real Woody has.
Right. Yes. Right.
That's why I brought up the difference between what Cosby is doing and what Woody is doing.
Yes.
They're doing different things. They're both fucked up people, but Woody is going like, I'm fucked up. Look, isn't it hilarious?
Annie and I broke up, and I still can't get my mind around that. I keep sifting the pieces of the relationship through my mind and examining my life and trying to figure out where did the screw up come, you know? And
So he's doing exactly what you described.
Yep.
It is that therapy thing of reviewing.
Yeah. And I also think this is kind of interesting, Steve, because maybe you bought a ticket for Annie Hall after watching the trailer thinking you're going to see a movie about these two people falling in love. But he is telling you right from the beginning that him and Annie didn't work out and they broke up. And he's going to analyze why this happened. And I think that's a fascinating way to start a movie like this.
Well, and you also recently watched Everything I Always Wanted to Know About Sex, but Were Afraid to Ask, and Sleeper. And you're like, I love this Woody Allen guy. He's wacky, crazy comedies.
Yeah.
Wait, that's not what this is. We're at it's not that it's not funny, but it's different.
Yeah.
I also want to point out the sentence. I was trying to figure out, where did the screw up come? He doesn't say, where did I screw up?
Right.
The screw up is external to him at this moment.
Yes.
You know, I was a reasonably happy kid, I guess. I was brought up in Brooklyn during World War II.
And we cut to a doctor's office where we see young Alvy, played by Jonathan Monk, and his mom, played by Joan Newman, in a perfect Brooklyn Jewish of that era thing.
He's been depressed. All of a sudden, he can't do anything.
Why are you depressed, Alvy?
And this is Chris Campbell playing the doctor. I love that he's smoking that cigarette in the doctor's office.
Everything about this is my favorite scene in the movie, and it's like literally the best scene in the movie because the joke is brilliant, and the casting of young Woody Allen and the way he's seated on that couch, essentially almost a plank on that couch, and his mom is like, just, you know, what business is that of you? Like, all of that is great, and the way they're framing Chris Campbell as the doctor, as he's got the cigarette. You're so right, Steve, the cigarette. He is like, I've heard this 100 times, and encouraging the kid, but I think in a way he's almost enjoying the fact that the kid has this kind of intelligent approach to life and fatalistic approach to life, which is a way of getting out of doing his homework. It's just genius, you know?
Well, I'll disagree with one thing. I think he's dealt with a million kids with a million problems. I don't think he's ever had a kid come in here upset because the universe is expanding.
Maybe you're right, and there's almost almost like this is a unique experience type of appreciation for it. Yeah,
the universe is expanding.
The universe is expanding?
Well, the universe is everything, and if it's expanding, someday it will break apart, and that will be the end of everything.
What is that your business?
I have used that line my whole life, either inside my mind or saying that to somebody. Her delivery of that line is perfect. What is that your business? Like, what do you care about? Like, it's just so perfect. I love it. It's the frustration of a mother who has an intelligent child who is thinking of things way too far out instead of dealing with the reality.
What has the universe got to do with it? You're here in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is not expanding.
Oh, God, she's so great.
And you're right. The doctor who's like trying to be positive and his character is just like, it won't be expanding for billions of years. We've got to try to enjoy ourselves while we're here, huh?
Again, this is a great scene that foreshadows everything we're about to see.
Yep.
And the doctor's almost like society saying to him, or almost, no, actually, the doctor is like a therapist or philosopher who's saying like, hey, you know what? You got to enjoy the time you have because life is short and it's not going to end for a long time. You know, people think the sun is going to hit the earth at some point, billions of years, whatever. The mom is society. What business is that? You just focus on what you need to do, get through the things, you know, it's not expanding. Live in the world now, live in the now. And so it's a fascinating to see these three different points of views clashing in this scene, because this is still who Alvy Singer is going to become as he gets older. Even as a child, he had this thought of the world as a fatalistic place to exist in. You know?
Well, this is why this is structurally a brilliant movie.
Yeah.
Because what is the doctor saying? He's saying you need to enjoy yourself.
Yes.
What does Annie say to him throughout? You don't know how to enjoy yourself.
Yes.
Why don't you want to go to Tony's party? Why don't you enjoy California?
Right.
Why are you? Everything is negative for this guy. And when he was 8 years old, the doctor said, dude, mom said, Brooklyn is not expanding. And the doctor said, enjoy yourself.
Right. But he doesn't listen because he's just caught up in his own hamster wheel of thought about the world, you know?
My analyst says I exaggerate my childhood memories, but I swear I was brought up underneath the roller coaster in the Coney Island section of Brooklyn.
We cut to the house under the roller coaster. So
Which is such a lie, but I love it.
Here's what's crazy. I just always assumed, well, they must have built that house, for the movie. No, they were location scouting, found a house under the roller coaster. It wasn't in the script. And Woody goes, well, we got to do that.
I mean, what's there seen that in the old apartments that were by the L? You would hear the train going by literally outside your window. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. And I love the shaking of the spoon as he's trying to eat tomato soup. Oh, just genius, man.
And then we cut to like a Coney Island food stand, and there is at the stand, in the distance is young Alvy with sailors and this blonde in a red dress. And we hear,
I have a hyperactive imagination. My mind tends to jump around a little, and I have some trouble between fantasy and reality.
And as he's saying this, the blonde turns to camera and gives a big smile right at the camera.
Oh, amazing.
What's amazing about it? Well, I love it too.
Because for him, this is, as he's just letting you know that my fantasies or stories about my life slam together. So you have these different soldiers who would not be caught dead with Alvy Singer in any way, shape, or form, and the blonde who really wouldn't be caught dead with Alvy Singer in any shape or form. But he, in his fantasies or his stories, he is cool enough to hang out with these people, and they're going to give a big kiss or whatever. So it just shows you that for all his insecurities, he also has an overinflated sense of himself. And so it's that combo that is the danger for any woman that comes into his life. So it's these little hints that he's giving through these scenes of himself, but also delivering them in a self-deprecating way. He knows his fantasies are overblown or overthought, but he's showing you where his fantasies go, which is all of these soldiers and this beautiful blonde woman hanging out with this young 9-year-old kid at Coney Island.
And it's also, and I 100% relate to this, particularly as a kid, the constantly running overactive imagination that cannot be stopped.
Yes.
And an extremely romantic, because I'm sure he was wandering around Coney Island, and I'm sure he saw a blonde, and I'm sure he saw a sailor, and then he constructed this beautiful romantic moment. And part of the reason that he can't enjoy himself is that he's always contrasting the romantic visions of his imagination with the reality, and it can't ever possibly live up to it.
I mean, I don't want to reveal this early, but I'm going to say that that's the problem that I discovered in my therapy, was that I was caught up in rom-com version of love. I thought that was real. I thought that's how it's supposed to be. And I will apologize to any of my ex-girlfriends who lived or were with me through those decades. I, at times, put them through hell because I'd be like, well, no, we're supposed to constantly be talking this way. We're supposed to be in love, constantly say, I could not understand fights in a relationship. And I would cause some fights in relationships because it wasn't mirroring what my imagination of a rom-com perfect relationship was. So I would think you need to change to fit what I want this relationship to be. And so it's that kind of thing that I had to confront for myself when I broke through in my therapy, that like, you can't live in the world of fantasy and reality, fantasy and think you're in reality. You're not. And to make people adhere to living in a fantasy world of rom-com existence 100% 24/7 is impossible to maintain. And so that had to be shattered for me before I could climb out of it and understand, like, we're all human beings. We all make mistakes. We're just trying to find the person whose fucked upness matches our fucked upness, and we come together and appreciate each other. And so, so I get what Alvy is saying 1,000%. I mean, this movie really affected me watching it this time around, because I probably haven't watched it in like 10, 20 years.
It really hit me. I saw I'll just spoil this a little bit. I think there's an element of this movie. I'm not saying it's Fight Club, but in Fight Club, you have a very charismatic character telling you all this stuff.
Yeah.
And what the purpose of that movie is to say, this is a fucked up person. We actually shouldn't listen to him.
Right.
But there's so many smart things in that movie that he's very seductive.
Yeah.
And I think as a younger man, obviously I knew that the character of Alvy is not a good guy and I wasn't supposed to like him. But he's so smart and funny and charming that I didn't really see how much horribleness there is. Like it hit me so much harder. Like, oh my God, we've talked about a lot of lead characters who are very unsavory people, whether it's Wolf of Wall Street or Goodfellas and stuff like that. Alvy Singer is not as horrible as a person as Jordan Belfort or a mob person who kills people. But it's a really uncomfortable person to be with the more that you study him. This is not a good guy.
Yeah, because he is judging everyone around him because he hates himself. And I think that's, or doesn't like himself. I don't want to say hate because that's a quantitative term. It's more a matter of like, it's clear that he doesn't like himself. And so he is going to hassle everybody to try to live the way he wants them to live so that they can function in his world. And I think that's clear as the movie goes along. The fact that we find out that he's been married twice and he's only in 40, like there's a lot of like that conversation to be had. And in a way, we are his girlfriend throughout the movie. We are, as he's talking to us about all these girls he dated, we are his girlfriend as well, because as you said, we find him charming. We find him funny. We find him interesting, despite all the red flags that are there for us to see, just like the women who came into his life, because we see as we go through it in the movie, we're going to talk about these scenes, how he shows who the fuck he really is every time he has these conversations with Carol Kane or I think Judith Margolin, I think his name, like whoever he's in contact with, and then eventually Diane Keaton, and he is 100% unabashedly himself. And so you understand these women get into relationships with him despite the signs that show you that this guy maybe isn't the best guy to be in a relationship with. And we are in a relationship with him now in the movie, watching the movie.
Yep. And after we see that, by the way, his dad ran the bumper car concessions, and see that's how he gets his aggression out, something that'll come back later, in a crazy way. We see the shot tracking along the blackboards, looking at each of the faces of his teachers, who are perfect face casting, by the way.
I remember the staff at our public school. You know, we had a saying that those who can't do teach, and those who can't teach Jim.
I've never been able to write a joke. I could write a funny scene.
Yeah.
But I cannot do this thing that he can do, which is just put the words together in just the perfect way with a perfect button. And he does it all the time.
And it's something, and there's jokes of like variations of things that you've heard in real life. We had that thought growing up in high school, that we didn't respect our gym teachers, for fuck's sake. You respect the history teachers. And I had maybe one good looking teacher the whole time through middle school and high school, right? Mrs. Hungerford in math in Godwin Middle School. But everyone else was not attractive or old. And so you just didn't, so what he's showing is true. And then you disrespect the gym teachers because they're just gym teachers. And that's how it was when you were in high school. So him telling that joke makes it very, I think a lot of people makes it very universal.
And then we discover that he pretty much was as dismissive and condescending as a child as he is as an adult, because he says,
I must say, I always thought my schoolmates were idiots. Melvin Greenglass, his fat little face, and Henrietta Farrell, just Miss Perfect all the time, and Ivan Ackerman, always the wrong answer, always.
First of all, the kid casting is fantastic.
100%.
And then hearing Ivan Ackerman say,
7-3 is live.
and how he slaps his forehead.
Yeah, but it's also interesting to watch this scene because he's judging all of these people, but you can tell that all of these people are dealing with their own shit and as
Exactly.
kids, right? But he's seeing them as somehow rivals for attention or whatever.
Well, because 9-year-old Alvy Singer was such a winner.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying, right? Exactly. Yeah.
And then he kisses a girl. Maybe he's 6, by the way. He kisses her. She freaks out. Yeah. The teacher calls him up.
That's the second time this month. Step up here.
What did I do?
Step up here.
What did I do?
You should be ashamed of yourself.
And then we hear the adult voice.
Why? I was just expressing a healthy sexual curiosity.
And everyone turns, and there is adult Alvy Singer sitting in the 4th row.
So smart.
Steve Morris's brain explodes. This idea of just like, and it's really funny is that one of the things I learned, and definitely when I was cutting the assistants, it's something I applied as an editor. If the dialogue flows over a totally bizarre cut, we will flow over with it. So because adult Alvy is just responding to something completely naturally in the way that we're used to in film, that the teacher said, when we cut to him, we don't actually have a bump. As long as, and that's what happens. Like when he walks up to someone walking on the street and says something, because and that person, stranger, starts talking to him. It's completely bizarre filmically, but we don't bump on it because it's done technically well within the way people talk and interact.
Yeah.
6-year-old boys don't have girls on their minds.
I did.
For God's sakes, Alvy, even Freud speaks of a latency period.
Again, in 1970s, who's doing this? Who's giving these kinds of intelligent adult words or lines to little kids? And they're delivering them perfectly, you know?
Teacher says, why couldn't you have been more like Donald? Now there was a model boy.
Tell the folks where you are today, Donald.
And Donald straightens up, talking straight to camera. Again, we're totally out of reality. We're just in this completely bizarre world now.
I run a profitable dress company.
Boy, sometimes I wonder where my classmates are today.
We have each kid step up and talk to camera.
Yeah.
These are amazing.
I'm president of the Pincus Plumbing Company. I sell taluses. I used to be a heroin addict. Now I'm a methadone addict.
And then the final for the capper.
I'm into leather.
Woody has always had these, and this is fascinating about him as a writer, because you don't really think of Woody and sex, but he has always had sexual allusions in all of his movies.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and even in Crimes and Misdemeanors, when we talked about like that scene where he talks about his sister, or is it Hannah and her sisters? I forget, but I think it's Crimes and Misdemeanors.
No, it's Crimes and Misdemeanors, what you're about to say.
Says that
a strange man defecated on my sister.
on her. Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, so, you know, the sensibility of it all is genius. And I also think an element of this is him talking about how, you know, we start out a certain way and we think we're going to end up in a certain way, and life throws us all kinds of curves and we end up completely something else as adults, which happens to a lot of people, you know.
By the way, speaking of sex and Crimes and Misdemeanors, I just had to, we're talking about Woody Allen jokes. One of my favorite lines is in Crimes and Misdemeanors. We're talking about how it's been forever since he's had sex. And he says, the last time I was inside a woman, I was visiting the Statue of Liberty. That's a great joke.
Yeah.
Cut to him on the Dick Cavett show, famous interviewer of Days of Yore, if you're, you know, a little bit older.
I lost track of most of my old schoolmates, but I wound up a comedian. They did not take me in the Army. I was, interestingly enough, I was 4P. Yes. In the event of war, I'm a hostage.
Again, the great jokes. So as I'm doing research and I'm looking through credit lists and actor names and stuff, and I see naval officer on Dick Cavett show, Mark Leonard.
Oh.
And I go, Mark Leonard? And I'm looking, it's really blurry. And I'm looking, it's like, is that Mark Leonard? Who plays Sarek in Star Trek. It is not that Mark Leonard. It's a different Mark Leonard, but it did take a moment to try to figure it out. And then we cut to, again, structurally, and the way this is done is not like any movie, because now we cut to mom who's peeling carrots, who's talking directly to camera as if she is talking to the character of Alvy.
You always only saw the worst in people. You never could get along with anyone in school. You were always out of step with the world. Even when you got famous, you still distrusted the world.
It's straight up exposition.
Yes.
And it is straight up saying exactly what we've been saying all along. It's on this same theme.
100%.
We're in a very long lens, and we have Alvy and Tony Roberts walking towards camera, and I'm sure you have information on Tony Roberts, but I also want to point out the cinematographer for this movie is Gordon Willis.
Gordon Willis, yeah.
Shot The Godfather, known as the Prince of Darkness. And what Woody says, he says, working with Gordon Willis, and they became partners for several films after this, absolutely transformed him as a filmmaker.
Wow.
It completely turned him from a comedian who was a writer, who just didn't really know where to put the camera, to someone who was really thinking about the camera and thinking about the role that the camera can take. And it really, like he says, this is what took him from an adolescent director to an adult, was the partnership with Gordon Willis.
Wow.
But I would like to hear a little bit about this actor, Tony Roberts, who's in many Woody Allen movies.
Yeah, Tony Roberts, who recently passed away in February of 2025, as we're recording this. This guy in a lot of the Woody Allen movies, and the way he got kind of connected to Woody is, as you said, Steve, with Diane Keaton. He was in the Play It Again Sam theater production as well. And I think he was nominated for a Tony for that, but you've seen him in Stardust Memories, A Midsummer Night's Comedy, sex comedy, Hannah and Her Sisters, and Radio Days as well. He's also been in The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, Serpico, one of my recent favorites that I revisited from Sidney Lumet. He's been
I
in
just watched it recently too. I watched it a few months ago.
I hope we get to do that on the show. I love that damn movie. 18 again with George Burns, you remember, in 1988. But on Broadway, he was in the Barefoot in the Park production. Dow Jones, Murder at the Howard Johnsons here. The musical version of Some Like It Hot. The Sisters Rosenzweig, which I know a lot of people who are theater people know that. Arsenic and Old Lace, and Cabaret, as well as playing Buddy Plummer in Stephen Sondheim Follies at the Paper Mill Playhouse in Jersey. And TV has been Carol Burnett Show, Matlock, Law & Order, Criminal Intent. He even had, I think, the rare relationship with Julie from The Love Boat. In an episode of The Love Boat, she was going to leave The Love Boat to be with him, and in the end, they realized that she had to stay on the ship, and he moved on. And so it's interesting situations for him. He's also been a voiceover guy who's done a number of novels. If you're a Stuart Woods fan and listen to his books on tape, you have heard Tony Roberts do the voiceover for those books as well. And he recently did, before he passed on a few years ago, Andrew Vachus's Batman book that he wrote, The Ultimate Evil. He did the voice on that as well. So yeah, a very accomplished actor who sadly passed away from lung cancer earlier this year. And he's great in all the Woody Allen movies. He's a great sounding board for the how can I say this? The out there stuff that Woody goes through and talks to him about as a character in his movies.
I believe he understands exactly what is required. In this film. It's not like he's the great actor of all time, but I'm so glad you brought up The Love Boat, because he is so one of those actors in the late 70s, early 80s who was on, I'm sure he was on Love American Style, and I'm sure he was on all those shows. And obviously you can't come between Julie and the sea. I mean, she is, that is her true love. It's like coming between Kirk and the Enterprise. You can't do that.
I distinctly heard it. He muttered under his breath, Jew. You're crazy.
And now we get into one of his paranoias, which is paranoia about anti-Semitism.
You know, I was having lunch with some guys from NBC. So I said, did you eat yet or what? And Tom Christie said, no, Jew. Not did you. Jew eat? Jew? No, not did you eat, but Jew eat? Jew. You get it?
I'm first of all definitely not going to say that anti-Semitism is not a absolutely real thing in the world, particularly today, and it certainly always has been. But I am going to say that there are a lot of people that are just looking to see it wherever it is, and it isn't always true.
Well, I think that's across the board, isn't it? We're being made very well aware of it nowadays, no matter what race or gender or sexual identity you have, or ethnicity you have, or religious orientation you have. Some people do develop a very hyperactive awareness of it that at times colors a regular interaction with that element of it, and it's not there. And I think that's what's so interesting. Once again, the way they've laid this character out before we get to this scene, which I love, this long shot of them walking. It's amazing. The conversation is, you can tell that he's constantly looking for offense, and he's constantly looking for people to reaffirm his insecurities about himself. And so he's going to sense anti-Semitism in places where it might not be. I'm not saying these people could very well be anti-Semitic, but weren't necessarily trying to be anti-Semitic in the conversations with Alvy. But it just shows that he has a hyperactive judgment of other people and a awareness to see if someone is saying something to offend him on purpose.
I'm glad you brought up, by the way, the shot. This is all a oneer as they're walking down the street in this long lens shot. There are a lot of oneers in this movie. There are tons. And it's funny. So the average length for a shot in a movie in 1977, because people do research on these things, was between 4 and 5 seconds. So you count up all the shots, divide the length, you figure out, somewhere between 4 and 5 seconds. The average length for a shot in Annie Hall is 15 seconds.
Wow.
Because most of these are oneers.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many of them in here.
Just get the hell out of this crazy city.
Forget it, Max.
We moved to sunny L.A. All of show business is out there, Max.
No, I cannot. You keep bringing it up, but I don't want to live in a city where the only cultural advantage is that you can make a right turn on a red light.
Again, this is like you said, Steve, earlier, it's hard to remove the autobiography from this movie because, you know,
Woody.
everybody in New York who writes, and I'm sure at the time as Woody was coming up, because I mean, Woody had done Sleeper and a couple of these other films to lead up to Annie Hall. I'm sure the conversation was happening with his agents and managers and people from LA, like, you got to go to LA, you got to go to LA to do movies, you got to do all this kind of stuff. But he's very much a New York person. So this internal or this struggle of his career is being played out in this scene, you know, in a lot of ways.
And he mentions that he's meeting Annie, and we see him standing in front of a building, and a very New York looking guy walks past him and thinks and comes back and looks at him. And this is an actor named Bob Maroff.
Again, the casting in this is just phenomenal. The people, just perfect. Because, you know, it's Hollywood. I think this is another thing that's a deceptive thing that Woody does smartly in this movie is, I think, and I'm pretty sure I would guess, because Woody is a well-known control freak, that he approved all the people who were cast in this movie.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
Right? Because he's also writing the film and he wants these characters to look a certain way when he writes. And so these are not pretty people in this movie for the most part. And I love that. You know, I think Diane obviously is pretty, but I think most of the people who are like the fringe characters that roll through these scenes are not the attractive people. And so to have this guy do the things that he does and then bring his buddy over, it's just fantastic. You know, but it's also a commentary for him on fame and how he deals with celebrity sometimes when people come up to try to get his autograph and talk to him and stuff. Because, of course, Woody was famous by this point.
I'm guessing that Alvy Singer is pretty well known. Like, not quite at the household name, but he's been on Carson and stuff like that enough.
Yeah, like the guy
that people would know who he is. And this guy looking at him, and you could see Alvy doesn't want to be recognized. He doesn't want to be famous right now.
You're on the Johnny Carson, right?
Once in a while, you know, every
What's
now.
your name?
I'm Robert Redford.
Come on.
And you could see he desperately wants, let's just keep this quiet. Don't make a big deal. And then finally he says, Alvy Singer, thank you very much for everything. And the guy goes,
Hey, what? This is Alvy Singer.
This guy's on television, Alvy Singer, right? Am I right?
Oh, so good. So good.
And the buddy comes up and they're all talking about him. And then he does something, which again, you do in theater all the time, but you don't do here, which is that he turns to camera.
I need the large polo mallet.
And now the cab pulls up with Annie. And at this point, he's just desperate to get out of here.
He's almost like a gazelle and two lions are like surrounding him, right? And then this escape presents itself. And he is mad that this person was late, and that's Annie, to see him. It's great.
Because she was supposed to rescue him. I mean, and this is a classic thing humans do. There is no way for Annie to know that he's being quote unquote accosted by these random guys. That's not her fault.
Right.
But Alvy will blame it on her. And the thing to keep in mind, this is a nonlinear movie.
Yeah.
And its method of being nonlinear is very hard to track. It's almost like a collage because the movie starts with him saying, I broke up with Annie.
Yeah.
This scene is before a breakup.
Yeah.
So figuring out exactly where we are at any time is hard.
Jesus, what'd you do? Come by way of the Panama Canal?
I'm in a bad mood, okay?
Bad mood? I'm standing with the cast of The Godfather.
You're gonna have to learn to deal with it.
I'm dealing with two guys named Cheech.
Which A is funny because Gordon Willis shot The Godfather.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I just want to point out that in the previous scene, he was complaining of everyone's anti-Semitism. He saw anti-Semitism everywhere he looked.
But that's what I'm saying. This guy he's a self-hating guy. And so he's going to judge everyone else because he judges himself. And so he's going to indulge in these things that he hates other people doing because he's under some sanctimonious belief that somehow it's okay when he does it, but not when other people do it. And so, yeah.
Well, the wonderful cocktail put together in this character is the combo of tremendous insecurity and self-hatred with tremendous arrogance.
Yes, right. And judgment of others, right? Exactly.
And judgment of others.
Yeah.
No judgment of himself, or very little.
But the opening is the judgment, and I think we're getting to him realizing that he needs to judge himself a little more harshly, but we're not there yet.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It'll be really interesting to talk about when we get to the ending.
Yeah.
Because I actually think, like Crimes and Misdemeanors, it's not an ending that just wraps everything up.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to sit with it and think about what it is.
Hey, please, I have a headache, all right?
Hey, you are in a bad mood. You must be getting your period.
Oof.
Such a dick.
Yes.
I'm not getting my period. Jesus, every time anything out of the ordinary happens, you think that I'm getting my period.
A little later, I think one of them may have missed it.
And we're at the movie theater, and we walk up to buy the ticket.
Has the picture started yet?
It started 2 minutes ago.
That's it. Forget it. I can't go in.
2 minutes, Alvy.
No, I'm sorry. I can't do it. We've blown it already. I can't go in the middle.
I mean, he's not wrong.
I literally was going, I almost said, John.
I will not miss the first 2 minutes of the movie. What's the fucking point? When people come in late to a movie, I almost want to go, what are you fucking doing here? Get out of here. Go to the next screening. You're not going to understand what's happening because a lot of movies right off the bat introduce what the whole point of the movie is, you know? Oh my God. I totally saw myself in this scene.
There are many moments in this movie where I uncomfortably saw myself.
Yes, yeah, which is,
many.
I think, the whole point of the movie for a lot of people. Yeah,
I mean, I think because part of the thing is I don't say most of the things that pop into my brain.
Right.
Alvy says them.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean things don't pop into my brain.
Right.
You know?
Right.
We're only missed the titles. They're in Swedish.
You want to get coffee for 2 hours or something?
2 hours? No. I'm going in.
Go ahead. Goodbye.
And this is the thing. He is unwilling to compromise for her. Therefore, she must continually compromise for him.
Yes. But I also think this is a passive-aggressive move by her. Like, she knows she's coming late. She knows he doesn't like to see movies and miss the first 2 minutes. So this is almost, I think this is, you say, like, where do we place this in the relationship timeline? And to me, this feels like we're getting near the end of the relationship because these are passive-aggressive things you do when you're done in a relationship, or you're kind of moving towards being done in the relationship, but you're not 100% sure you're done in the relationship. So you disregard your partner's time or the things that your partner values in certain ways. And so I think this is a little bit of passive aggressiveness for her. And by the way, I'm not blaming her because he's a difficult guy to be with, but I do think this is a little bit of like, she knew how he was going to react to this. You know?
Two things about this. One is, and I have no way of knowing, but they break up twice.
Yes.
I think this is before the first breakup, not the second.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
Because this feels more like there's a lot of friction in the relationship, not to the point of like, oh, we all agree this isn't working.
Right.
Which is where we get later. The other thing about it, I think, is that part of the theme of this is a feminist movie in a lot of ways, which again makes it so hard when we're talking about Woody Allen. And he suggests going to see The Sorrow and the Pity.
What is The Sorrow and the Pity, Steve? I've never seen this. Do you know what
I haven't seen it either, but mostly I know of this a documentary about the Vichy, about the French resistance to Nazi Germany.
Oh, come on. We've seen it. I'm not in the mood to see a 4-hour documentary on Nazis.
Well, I'm sorry. I can't. I've got to see a picture exactly from the start to the finish because I'm anal.
That's a polite word for what you are.
Look, you and I both been in relationships. You and I are both movie lovers.
Sure.
And there's a thing, depending on the relationship and what people's preferences are, where sometimes you will say, hey, I really want you to watch this thing.
Yeah.
I know it's not your thing, but I want to share this important to me. And you will do that. And there are other times you go, yeah, I'm going to watch that on my own.
Yeah.
Because that's not going to happen.
Right.
To force someone to watch a 4-hour black and white documentary on Nazis twice.
But this is also a way of them, and I want, this is, you know, if you want to do analysis on this, like, why is he taking them to a 4-hour movie where they're not going to talk and they're going to watch something like this? Like, what is the logic here? You know, is he also kind of, as you said, this might be leading to the first breakup. Is he also kind of stepping away from the relationship in some ways by passive aggressively taking her to a film that he knows he's not going to have to talk to her through for 4 hours and still be considered in the relationship? You know what I'm saying?
Well, sure. And there's also the thing of when you take your goy, to use one of the titles, when you take your not Jewish girlfriend,
good point,
and you've been talking about anti-Semitism all day, and you take her to the Nazi movie, you know, there's something in there.
It's also emotional blackmail, kind of. Yeah.
So we end up in line again. This whole thing is a oneer. We're in one shot for this whole thing, and there's a guy standing behind them in line talking to a woman, and this is Russell Horton, who's the blowhard. And because what Woody Allen is doing, you know, part of it is, for the most part, Bill Cosby is not. I'm going to keep obsessing about this comparison, even though it doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah,
Bill Cosby is not making fun of himself. He's mostly making fun of the world.
Yeah, and the
Woody Allen,
situations he finds himself in. Yes, yeah.
Because, yes, we're making fun of this intellectual blowhard that's standing in the line, but that's who Alvy is, too.
Right.
I mean, Alvy would say all of these things.
Yes, but because someone else is saying it, they're pretentious.
Exactly.
Not him. Right, exactly.
We saw the Fellini film last Tuesday. It is not one of his best. It lacks a cohesive structure. You know, you get the feeling that he's not absolutely sure what it is he wants to say. Of course, I've always felt he was essentially a technical filmmaker.
I think this is Woody also taking shots throughout the movie. And
yeah,
right? This is him taking shots. Like what you would do modern day is this is a YouTube commenter coming in and you're listening to them do analysis or something on a comment thread, right? And what you're seeing here in essence is him taking a shot at people who talk about his movies. I think this is what he's taking a shot at this guy for and speaking about the things that he's speaking about and talking about Fellini as if he would know who the fuck Fellini was. And I think what we're getting to, which is Alvy embarrassing him in the fourth wall break, is his way of trying to embarrass the people who would speak about his work in a certain way or speak about films in a certain way who have no fucking concept what they're talking about.
I totally think that's all true, but I also think he's making fun of himself and his own intellectual blowhard tendencies. You know what I mean? I mean, there is a Upper East Side, frequently largely Jewish intellectual thing.
Yes.
And when you hang out with, and I'm a Jewish guy who grew up, all of my parents' friends were doctors and lawyers and stockbrokers and professors, and that's their entire group.
Right.
And they are all, professionals, none of them broke, all highly educated. Yeah. And so it's not that they talk like this, but like that's a thing.
Yeah.
And I believe that all things are open to be to have them made fun of. Yeah. And this deserves to be made fun of.
Sure.
And just the framing of it with Alvy in the foreground, this guy behind him, because Woody Allen is a great reactor. His facial expression is so good. I love this line, by the way.
Granted, La Strada was a great film. Great in its use of negative imagery more than anything else.
I think we broke John.
Yeah, man, because I have sat in movie theaters at critic screenings listening to critics talk about movies. Yeah. There are times I want to bang my head through a wall listening to their analysis of films. Like, there are times. And no judgment. We all got to work. We all got to do our things. But there are times when I hear them talk about movies and I just go, what the fuck are you talking about? But, it's part of the game.
And so he is both reacting to this guy talking behind him and making little snide comments, which apparently he hasn't heard yet. Then finally he says, after many minutes where he didn't, when your girlfriend says I'm in a bad mood, you should respond to that right away. But he does not. Finally, he says,
what are you depressed about?
I missed my therapy. I overslept.
How can you possibly oversleep?
The alarm clock.
Do you know the hostile gesture that is to me?
So her missing her therapy appointment is her being hostile to him.
Right. Which she points out numerous times in the movie. Everything is about him.
I know, because of our sexual problem, right?
Everybody online at the New Yorker has to know our rate of intercourse.
And what's so great, because it's all one shot. So the timing of their conversation with the blowhard behind them, it has to be super tight and sharp because you can't cut.
It's like Samuel Beckett.
And the reaction from Woody when he says Beckett is just unbelievable.
Now, I admire the technique, but it doesn't hit me on a gut level.
I'd like to hit this guy on a gut level.
Stop it, Alvy.
And she knows he's being she tries to get him to stop,
Well, and he's been dismissive of her therapy and said she had the period. I mean, there's all sorts, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on.
Yeah.
You're so egocentric that if I miss my therapy, you can only think of it in terms of how it affects you.
There you go.
And this guy keeps pontificating behind him, and Woody says, or Alvy says,
probably on their first date, right? Probably met by answering an ad in the New York Review of Books. 30-ish academic wishes to meet woman who's interested in Mozart, James Joyce, and sodomy.
These are great jokes, man.
They're great. I mean, so when you're writing, you lists are very important, like boom, ba-doo, and there's a musical rhythm to the right list.
Yeah.
And there's sounds of the vowel sounds and consonant sounds and how they interplay in the music. And the line, interested in Mozart, James Joyce, and sodomy, is it's just perfect lyrically, in addition to being really funny.
What do you mean, our sexual problem? I mean, I'm comparatively normal for a guy raised in Brooklyn.
Okay, I'm very sorry. My sexual problem. Okay, my sexual problem, huh?
So none of the problems are his fault.
Nope.
He has to put all the problems, they're all on her.
Right.
And then when she says that too loudly and he's embarrassed.
I never read that. That was Henry James, right? Novel?
You know what it
sequel
is?
to Turn of the Screw?
It's the influence of television. Yeah, now, Marshall McLuhan deals with it in terms of it being a high intensity, you understand? A hot medium.
What I wouldn't give for a large sock with horse manure in it.
Marshall McLuhan, very, very famous scholar on the media. His famous, one of his most famous quotes is, "The medium is the message," which is something you could think about all the time in terms of social media and TikTok and all of our conversations about. It's like the way that you receive the media is directly connected to the message that it is giving you.
Yep.
And now he turns to camera, full on, walks forward to talk to us.
Yeah.
What do you do when you get stuck on a movie line with a guy like this behind you?
Which, by the way, we've all had this experience, right?
Or we've been the guy. That's the thing.
Sometimes we've been the guy.
Sometimes we've been the guy. Let's be honest. And me too.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, totally.
We've been the guy pontificating about movies or whatever in a line, and people are rolling their eyes at our opinions for sure.
So, and this is, to me, it's like the school where the kids start talking to camera and Alvy as an adult is there. It's one level of breaking reality for a character to have voiceover. It's another level of breaking reality for the character actually talking directly to camera.
Yes.
But it's a whole other stratospheric level of breaking reality when a secondary character also comes forward to talk to the camera.
Wait a minute, why can't I give my opinion? It's a free country.
He can give you. Do you have to give it so loud? I mean, aren't you ashamed to pontificate like that? And the funny part of it is, Marshall McLuhan, you don't know anything about Marshall McLuhan's work.
Really? I happen to teach a class at Columbia called TV, Media, and Culture. So I think that my insights into Mr. McLuhan, well, have a great deal of validity.
So we've broken reality. And then we broke reality at like level 2. And now Woody Allen says to camera.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Well, that's funny because I happen to have Mr. McLuhan right here.
And this is the whole reason that Gordon Willis and Woody insisted that this was a oneer, that it's all in one shot, because they felt that the surprise to bring Marshall McLuhan in was much stronger, because otherwise you could just cut to him.
Right.
But that wouldn't feel magic like this.
Right.
Because he walks, the camera pans with him, he goes up to a placard sign and pulls out Marshall McLuhan to talk to this guy. And Marshall McLuhan says, which, to be clear, makes zero sense.
I heard what you were saying. You know nothing of my work. You mean my whole fallacy is wrong.
My whole fallacy is wrong. Makes no sense. It's not the line he was giving him. This is like take 17. And Marshall McLuhan blew the line every single take.
Oh, my God.
And because he just couldn't do it. And so this was the best one that he did, and the whole rest of the scene. And I swear to God, I almost have you. I'll play this last moment, because if you have the video up, watch Woody and the blowhard actor as Marshall McLuhan makes a mistake on the line.
Yeah,
I think you can totally see Alvy become the director.
Yes,
in that moment, and the actor. He's like, it's a little bit of a deer in the headlights.
Yes.
Like, I'm still in the scene. The guy's messed it up. What are you going to do? Are we going to do this again? It's totally in there.
And I have to think that this is what influenced Rodney Dangerfield to bring in Kurt Vonnegut in that scene in Back to
100%.
Right?
Totally.
It's genius.
I've always put the two of them together.
Yeah.
And then he looks at the camera and says, boy, if life were only like this.
But again, he said this from the beginning with that scene in Cody Island. He has these fantastical stories or memories, and he slams this stuff together. None of this happened, but it's genius. I love it.
Initially, he wanted Fellini to be this part, not Marshall McLuhan. Fellini said no, and Buñuel said no. He wanted Buñuel was the second choice.
Holy God, Buñuel.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. And by the way, then the hard cut right after, boy, if life were only like this, into the sorrow and the pity. And we cut from the sorrow and the pity to Annie reading in bed. And the one thing I wanted to point out about Annie Hall is that you could just do a whole survey of this movie by looking at intellectual and cultural references.
Yeah.
There are books everywhere. There's art everywhere. There's mentions of music, of film, of all of these things. And they're all really interesting. And so the book that Annie is reading in bed, I think is really critical to pay attention to, which is she's reading The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir.
Okay.
Now, this is a foundational work of modern feminism. This is like critical to feminist thought. And the basic idea is that women are not, and this is from this book, women are not born with a fixed nature, but their nature and their femininity or the role of the woman is constructed for them by the culture and traditions of male-dominated institutions. And that because men rule the world, they define what it means to be a woman. They define what success means as a woman, and those roles are strictly adhered to. And what this book that she is reading right now, Second Sex, is about, I do not have to be defined by a man, but I actually am an individual who can define myself. That is the book that Annie Hall is reading in this scene with Alvy.
The thing that's amazing about this movie, and this is like one of those early instances in the film, is that it is actually a feminist film in a lot of ways, because the man is an utter buffoon at times, even though he's an intelligent guy. And he really loves Diane Keaton, because Diane Keaton gets like center stage throughout this whole movie. She does nothing wrong through the whole movie. And we even end the movie with her singing the ending song, so much of the film is about praising Annie Hall on her journey, and seeing how intelligent she's becoming by being connected to him. So it's a very interesting place. It's not saying that you need to be with a man to get, it's just that at this stage in their relationships as human beings, and she says this to him in the film, he inspires her to look at things a little differently, to look at things from a more educated point of view, to kind of explore this more about herself. And ironically, she goes so deep into that she ends up moving past him. And I think this is like the first kind of opening of seeing her doing her thing, reading this book, looking into it. And as you just laid out, these are interesting, complex topics and commentary on gender dynamics in society at the time and historically.
Well, and this is the thing too, is that I don't think Annie Hall would ever have picked up this book had she not met Alvy and had a relationship with him.
Yes.
But this is not a book that Alvy gave her.
Right.
Because, as she says later on, all the books that he gave her have the word death in the title.
Yeah.
This does not have death in the title. And this is, so what I think is like, and this is what's I think so brilliant about this movie, Annie needed Alvy on a lot of levels to become the person that she was going to become.
Yes.
But she also needed to move past him. And that's why it's also because this is a nonlinear film. We don't know exactly where this is in their relationship.
Right.
I kind of put this, my guess is it's before the first breakup, not before the second breakup. But it is definitely far enough into her relationship that she would have picked up this book without Alvy,
Right. And listen, I want to make this really clear. We're not, I think sometimes we've gotten lost in these fist pounding declarations about man versus woman, or woman is better than man, or man is better than woman. Like, people come into our lives and they change us. And it's not sexist to say that. It's not misogynistic to say that, or vice versa. I don't know how many women have come into my life and opened me up to so many things. And I've had women who I broke up with later on when we have conversations say that I introduced them to a lot of things they hadn't considered in life or looked at in life. And that's what you want from a relationship, even if it doesn't work out, is that person changes you in some way for the better, right? And he doesn't do it in a way that's respectful at times, but he is, in essence, is challenging her to think more. And for her to play on his level, she has to kind of level up a little bit in terms of things that she's reading. But she took to it naturally. This is not like feeding her castor oil. She is legitimately reading this thing on her own and reading and making her own decisions and making her own choices of the books to read along with the books that he's suggesting. So there is still an independence, even though there is suggestions from him of things that she should read. And so it's a good mixture of both, which is how it normally is in life.
I mean, I already kind of mentioned it in this episode, but like, the most important mentor of my life is unquestionably Mike Hoover. And Mike Hoover is a problematic person. And my guess is this is kind of how Annie feels about Alvy, years later, is you can't separate those two things. You know, you can't just go, and that's our tendency, I think, is when we have a breakup, is we just go, okay, that person is all evil.
Right.
And it's like, that's not probably the reality. The reality is probably you were getting something from that person.
Right.
And then there were other things that were troubling.
Yeah.
So we hear, boy,
That's
those French
normal. We mean that for normal relationships. We don't mean that for.
Of course, I'm not saying
relationships. Yeah, I just want to make sure we clarify.
Of course.
You know how people can misconstrue, Steve. You know.
No, it's a good point, and yet I'm going to still double down a little bit on what I'm saying, because the having witnessed two really bad alcoholic, codependent, abusive relationships in close kind of family area, the people that were the abusers were unbelievably brilliant and charismatic in both cases. And so, like, this is not to excuse abuse in any way, shape, or form, but it is to explain to some degree, people were drawn to those abusers for a reason sometimes.
Yep.
You know, that's what makes them so dangerous.
Boy, those guys in the French resistance are really brave, you know? They have to listen to Maurice Chevalier sing so much.
I know. Sometimes I ask myself how I'd stand up under torture.
And he makes a joke about them taking away her, the Gestapo would take away her Bloomingdale's charge card and she'd tell them everything. And then I find this line really telling about the two of them.
That movie makes me feel guilty.
Well, because it's supposed to.
Alvy chooses to go to see the 4-hour documentary on the French resistance twice because it's supposed to make him feel guilty. He's just getting pleasure out of his suffering.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is a thing that we know from the beginning. He is a guy who is, who, I don't know, has a negative view about himself. For all his intelligence and all his knowledge, he's also a very judgmental person, which implies a deep insecurity, a deep self-esteem issue. And he's also someone who will sabotage himself, as we see later in LA, because he just doesn't think he deserves certain things. And I think that's why he sabotages the relationship with Annie Hall. I'm not trying to remove his blame from it. I'm trying to say, like, his desire for self-destruction is there in these moments. And they're not big. He's not an alcoholic or a drug addict or, you know, doing dangerous things. It's more that he is, in those critical moments, he is pushing things away that he should be bringing to himself in order to have more success. And so it's going to see the sorrow and the pity, I think, is a part of almost him, like that guy in Angels and Demons, or was it the Da Vinci Code, who whips himself all the time? Those hardcore Christians that do that. It's almost like that. He's like whipping himself with this kind of stuff because that film should make him feel guilty. He's a Jew and he's watching this film about what happened. So, like, he didn't do anything. He was the victim, but yet it makes him feel a certain way, which I think is fascinating for him to put himself through that, you know?
I was going to say something else, but I want to drill down quickly. Yeah. What is the nature of the guilt? What should one feel guilty about when watching this movie? Because
that's a great point. Maybe I don't know. I can't speak to it from a cultural place as a Jewish man watching a film about what happened during the Holocaust for the French side, or during World War II rather, for the French side, because I don't know what the ethnic guilt of that is, or the ethnic guilt of that is. But I know for me, when you watch those things, I don't necessarily feel guilt. I don't know if I've ever watched a documentary of World War II and feel guilty, but it's more a matter of I'm more horrified, I'm more shocked, I'm more sad than I've ever felt guilty on one of those. So why would Alvy feel guilty, or why would Diane Keaton feel guilty, unless that's a commentary, even all those decades ago, on the idea of white guilt? You know what I'm saying?
It's so interesting. I'm so glad I asked this question, because it is totally it's because that all makes it total sense. And that's what I thought you were saying. And I 100% believe I understand why they feel guilty. I too feel guilty. And it has nothing to do with white guilt, because it isn't about the Nazis. Right. It isn't I feel guilty for the terrible things the Nazis do. I don't associate with the Nazis. Right. It relates to, there is frankly no moment in any movie in history that has wrecked me more completely than the end of Schindler's List. When he is saying, if only, you know, I have this watch. Why do I still have this watch? Why do I still have this car? This car could have saved lives. That's why I feel guilty. It's what I haven't done to protect people. It's all the suffering in the world that exists, and I'm not standing up and doing everything that I can to fight against it. That's why I feel guilty.
Well, maybe I don't because I don't shut up about it online or in our conversations or with talking to people. I'm always talking about the injustices in the world. So I don't necessarily feel guilty that I'm not doing more. But
I feel like I could have done more.
I don't know.
I mean, zero disrespect towards what you are clearly fighting the good fight online all the time. But talking and doing aren't exactly the same thing.
Right. And me doing things doesn't have to fit into what you think I should be doing.
Exactly.
And there's the differences there. Like for me, I'm doing it the way I feel comfortable doing it. And other people are much more about actions, which I totally respect, And so,
I mean, my sister fairly regularly volunteers at the local food bank, like that is a normal part of her life.
Right.
And I feel guilty that I am not doing things like that all the time.
I think this is something to explore. Why should we feel guilty about this? Like, that's the thing too, in my mind. It's like, why should we feel guilty about this kind of stuff? We didn't do anything that's in the movie. We're not trying, like, we can only do what we can do. And if we're trying to do the best we can, I think there should not be guilt about it, because I think that's a thing that's meant to stagnate us rather than inspire us.
Well, I think this is a perfect subject for a future Cinephile short, because I really think it's interesting, But just in terms of this movie, I think what Alvy later on in the movie says something, and it's completely ridiculous. But as long as they're suffering anywhere in the world, I can't enjoy anything, basically, And so I think this idea of feeling guilt for suffering, is a really, it is certainly a theme that exists here in this film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure.
And then Alvy makes his romantic advances with Annie, and she is obviously not that interested, and he is upset because it's been a long time, and she makes her excuse.
Well, it's just that, I got to sing tomorrow night, so I have to rest my voice.
Some kind of an excuse. It's, you used to think that I was very sexy. When we first started going out, we had sex constantly. We're probably listed in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Well, Alvy, it'll pass. It'll pass. It's just that I'm going through a phase, that's all.
Is this a phase?
No, I think, having been in a number of relationships, when anyone, regardless of gender, is in that place where they're kind of delaying things or telling it's a phase or trying to push off a little bit, it's because something's going wrong in the relationship, and there's not a sexual attraction there. And they're not in a place, though, to make a strong decision one way or the other. They just know they're not in that place right now. So, and sometimes it does pass, right? Because sometimes it's personal and you're going through some things, maybe crisis of your career or confidence or whatever. But in my experience, most of the time, that's kind of the beginning of leading to the end of the relationship.
I think this is such a good example of something I brought up before, of just like the insufficient power of language to actually resolve these things. We were just talking off mic about a situation where I'm like, I can't figure out, here's a whole bunch of people I care about, and there's a conflict, and I cannot figure out a way to resolve it with language. Yeah. Like, it's just really hard. And you're in this place where you're not feeling that attracted to your partner, but you don't want to end the relationship and you don't want to hurt their feelings. And so you're kind of saying it's just a phase. And the other person feels like there's something going on, but they can't, it's like everybody's going around the issue, and we can't really deal with what the actual problem is, which is a big part of this film.
And and it could also be because they're just not ready to confront it, right? And isn't until they get on the plane later in the film that they actually have an honest conversation about their relationship. But I also think it's interesting, Steve, you bring, first of all, I never knew what the book was about. So you bringing that up, right? She's reading that book just as she is rejecting him sexually. So it tells you that she is like, this is maybe a scene that's the beginning of her awakening, of understanding that this is not the relationship for her. She may not be aware that that is what the thought is going to eventually develop into, but this is maybe the seed at the beginning of that as it progresses, as we jump back and forth in time in this relationship.
What I just clicked on, and I'm really glad that we're having this conversation, because we're talking about how autobiographical is this? How much is Alvy Singer Woody Allen?
Yeah.
And we're watching, Alvy say, he says all sorts of dismissive things. He's condescending. He's arrogant. He's all these things. And the movie is poking holes in those things. The thing is, Alvy Singer did not put that book in Diane Keaton's hands.
Right.
Woody Allen did.
Oh.
And that's the thing, is that Woody Allen is thinking about this. Woody Allen is thinking about this feminist. Woody Allen has read this book.
Right, of course.
And he's thought it was profound. And so he put it in this character's hands. Alvy Singer never would have done that.
No. Well, so maybe there's a separation there, as you said. Yeah.
I think that, well, this is what I keep going, is that the movie is clearly here to really rip Alvy Singer to pieces in all sorts of ways, you know?
Well, I think it's very, and I think Curb Your Enthusiasm is very influenced by something like this, right? Where, I mean, this is what you're watching on screen is not actually Larry David, but there are elements of Larry David in that character. But what great comedians do is self-deprecate, right? Or find a way to ridicule themselves and bring in the audience on the ridicule. And that's what Annie Hall does. Like, Alvy Singer is not a good guy, but these are elements of Woody's personality and maybe thoughts that he's had and said to himself, no, I can't think like that because that's a bad way to think about this. But maybe if I gave that to the character, that could be a way to explore that. So I think there are elements of maybe thoughts or patterns or people he's known who were male and did certain things that he instilled in Alvy Singer, but he was willing to portray it and direct the film and write it. So I think to me, that's an interesting thing to make that separation. The character is not him, but there's enough of him in the character to make it feel like the lines are blurred in terms of the autobiographical approach to it.
I mean, you've been married before. You know how things can get. You were very hot for Allison at first.
And we cut to a flashback, and there is Allison, played by a very young and beautiful-looking Carol Kane. I love seeing these actors at these early stages in their careers.
Yeah, there are quite a few. We're going to see John Glover. We're going to see Sigourney Weaver. We're going to see a lot of young actors who are a part of this as well. But yeah, Carol Kane, of course, all of you know her. Well, of a certain age, of Steve and I's age, we know her from Taxi. A lot of you, and because it's Christmas season, you know her in Scrooged. And she's recently been in the new Star Trek show, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, for the last couple of seasons, probably be in season 5 as well. And so an incredible actress who's worked quite a lot, a comedian, and done all kinds of work across movies and TVs and has always left an indelible mark. And she's an incredible choice to play his first wife.
And we're backstage at some sort of political event, and he's a comic, and she says, you're on next. And he's not happy about this because that would mean he's following another comic. And what you get is an outpouring of insecurity from Alvy at this moment.
Look, they're laughing at him, see? So what are you telling me? That they're going to laugh at him for a couple of minutes, and I got to go out there, I got to get laughs too? How much can they laugh? They're laughed out.
Which is apparently a thing, like in the comedy world, following someone who's just killed following another comic when you're 2 comics in a row, it's a bad situation.
And so he goes off on that. And then I think just because he's nervous, he wants to direct his attention elsewhere. And so he starts asking about her.
What's your name?
General Eisenhower.
Allison?
Yeah? Allison what?
Puchnik?
And he's going to go into the most beautiful caricature of who this person is. Stereotype.
You're like New York Jewish left-wing liberal intellectual, Central Park West, Brandeis University, with the socialist summer camps, and the father with the Ben Shahn drawings, right? And the really, strike-oriented kind of... stop me before I make a complete imbecile of myself.
No, that was wonderful. I love being reduced to a cultural stereotype.
Such a great response, Again, Woody is willing to play a character that is ridiculed by the women in the film throughout, but these women still end up with him, which I think is a really fascinating thing when you look at it. So yeah, she pushes back on him and calls him out on what he says to her. By the way, I don't recognize anything he said. I don't know what any of this stuff is.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no fucking clue. I don't know what Brandeis is. I don't know what the work camps are or whatever it was that he said. I have no idea what this is. It's just in my mind, I go, okay, that seems like a New York Jewish things that are, people who are Jewish would know.
So I'm a West Coast Jew. So and so my family, so I don't like when you have the Brooklyn family and all that stuff. That's not how my family, this Jewish family she's describing. Yeah. We're a lot closer to my family, because this is the educated, has some money Jewish family. Yeah. It is Brandeis University is a super liberal university. Wow. The Ben Shahn drawings are the Jewish art that Jewish intellectuals. And when we get to like the socialist summer camps and all this is liberal Jewry of the second half of the 20th century. Like this is the, it's like think about, who Allison is, who Allison could grow up to be? Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Is that this is the Jewish intellectual East Coast, highly educated group of people.
Right.
These are who's going to become civil rights lawyers and doctors and crusading environmentalists and irritating artistic communist people continually obsessing over the sorrow and the pity and everything else. You know, they're going to museums and they're going to the opera and they have very intellectual thoughts and they're definitely reading Marshall McLuhan. You know, that's who these folks are.
Well, I appreciate it because I had no idea what a Benson painting was. I had no idea what anything, or Brandeis. So Brandeis is like the Berkeley of the East Coast. Is that what you're saying?
It's liberal private though, whereas Berkeley is public
Berkeley,
university, huge.
Right on.
You know, and then I swear to God, I had to stop the movie after Alvy's response.
Okay.
No, that was wonderful. I love being reduced to a cultural stereotype.
Right, I'm a bigot, but for the left.
A bigot for the left. That hit real hard for me. You know.
Okay.
Well, frankly, you and I have had these discussions. Yeah. I do not think being a bigot is limited to the left or to the right. And listening to people on the left who say, you know, that someone is a Christian or someone is a Republican, and then they think that they can sum up every single thing about that person is a bigot from the left.
Right. But I think that's what's great about the scene is that he did exactly what you're saying, right? That's why he said, well, I'm a bigot, right? But for the left, it's his way of downplaying it, but she absolutely called him out for being a bigot, for sure. Yeah.
And as you say, and this is also critical to the Woody, like what's so weird about the Woody, and particularly if you look at his early stand-up, is that he has this combination of totally neurotic, nerdy, insecure, all that stuff.
Sure.
With this weird, frequently sexual arrogance.
Yes.
Is that the way he presents his character is that he's a suave, good-looking, I mean, and so in this moment, he is unbelievably confident in this weird way and successful with beautiful women, you know?
Right. He has the retort. And the thing is, he has the retort and he has the ability. And listen, he had a relationship with Diane Keaton. He had a relationship with Mia Farrow. So like, it's not like he's making this up out of the blue. It does happen in real life as well for him because he's an intelligent guy. And, you know, women do appreciate men of intelligence, regardless of looks most of the time. And so, because I don't think Woody's a particularly attractive guy.
No.
But it's that kind of confidence, intelligence, arrogance that you, with the combo of the neurotic thing, that I think is, but I also think it's genius of him as a comedian to create the character of Woody Allen. You know, he's this kind of awkwardly nervous kind of guy, but he's delivering these zingers in between the staccato rhythm of speech. He's delivering these zingers and these intelligent observations that kind of knock you back on your heels because it's an unusual package or unusual messenger to be delivering these things.
Exactly, and I think that we can circle us back to this idea of how autobiographical is this? Because, you know, and this is, you hear this from every stand-up comedian, is it's not that the character that the stand-up comedian represents isn't based on them, but it also isn't them. Right. It is a character. You know, it's just what you said about Larry David. You know, it's like he has created this thing.
I have to go out there, say something encouraging quickly.
And she says, despite the fact that he reduced her to a cultural stereotype.
I think you're cute.
He goes on stage, and speaking of Woody stand-up, here it is.
I don't know why they would have me at this kind of rally, because, excuse me, I'm not essentially a political comedian at all. I, interestingly, had dated a woman in the Eisenhower administration briefly, and it was ironic to me because I was trying to do to her what Eisenhower's been doing to the country for the last 8 years.
Every word, every pause, the excuse me, that everything is placed there for a reason.
Yeah.
His language his joke language is like fucking musical poetry.
I cannot recommend his stand-up albums enough for people. If you've never experienced Woody's stand-up, Woody's Roundup, Woody's stand-up, because, and I think they have full albums on YouTube where you can just listen to all the tracks. And he is incredibly funny, like legitimately incredibly funny. So it's not a surprise to me that he found his way in at a time when movies were kind of like, who are we going to give movies to? And got a great deal because he is so funny. And so him doing these snippets of stand-ups throughout the movie, you just see how great and how funny he actually is.
Well, and I think it's his way to, because, the previous comedies are just full on comedies.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And he became famous through the stand up. And so I think part of what he's doing, I don't know if this was intentional, is going, I'm going to keep reminding you that I'm still the Woody Allen comedian that you really love.
Good point. Yeah.
While we go on this journey that's going to be a bit different.
Yeah.
Point. Yeah. Now, we went into this flashback because Annie turned down sex with Woody.
Right.
And now we've met Allison, his first wife, and we've moved forward into the flashback where they're kissing, except now it's Alvy that is not interested in sex with Allison.
I'm sorry, I can't go through with this because I can't get it off my mind, Allison. It's obsessing me.
Oh, I'm getting tired of it. I need your attention.
And so we're going, okay, there's some problem that's distracting him. What's it going to be? And he says,
it doesn't make any sense. He drove past the book depository and the police said conclusively that it was an exit wound. So how is it possible for Oswald to have fired from 2 angles at once? It doesn't make sense.
Alvy.
I mean, the Kennedy assassination keeping you from having sex with a woman, with your wife. Hilarious.
I mean, I'm not saying that you have ever done this, John, but I can picture you being very obsessed about various topics at various times.
Yes. Which has distracted me from sex sometimes. Yes, I don't disagree with you 100%. And it's been weird sometimes when it happens. But, when you're young, you just kind of go where your mind takes you sometimes. I also think this is a great usage of the camera to spin around the room and follow Woody, because it gives us an idea of what these characters are. I mean, those stacks of books all over the place, the art on the wall, the way the fireplace is set up and decorated. Like, there's just a good example. And even the bed, with that brass headboard, like, it's just got little things that give you an idea of where they're at financially and where they're at in their lives, and I think that's some smart set design there as well.
So he's spinning out on all of the Kennedy assassination bugaboos, and we're listing all the people that would have to be in on this grand conspiracy.
Lyndon Johnson.
Lyndon Johnson is a politician. You know the ethics those guys have. It's like a notch underneath child molester.
This is my note I wrote down at this moment. I was like, fuck, man, there are some moments in this movie.
Yeah.
Because there's a damn good chance that Woody Allen is a child molester. And this line really fucking came out of I don't know who, I don't know all the reality. None of us will ever know the sequence of events, exactly what happened. I don't know what Woody is doing or feeling or wanting or desiring in 1977 when he was making this movie. Right. But lines like this, man, they jump out.
Well, also because nowadays, politically, we hear the accusations that one side protects pedophiles, one side, the other side accuses the other side of being the ones who are engaging in these kinds of things and bringing up examples of it. So, yeah, it's an interesting commentary that still carries weight today, but also still carries a lot of weight with being said by Woody Allen with those accusations.
Then everybody's in on the conspiracy. The FBI and the CIA and J. Edgar Hoover and oil companies and the Pentagon and the men's room attendant at the White House.
No, I would leave out the men's room attendant.
You're using this conspiracy theory as an excuse to avoid sex with me.
And the camera pans to him, very conscious camera move.
Oh my God, she's right. Why did I turn off Alison Porchnick? She was beautiful, she was willing, she was real, intelligent. Is it the old Groucho Marx joke that I just don't want to belong to any club that would have someone like me for a member?
Which is how he starts the movie, with the same joke.
Yep.
And so, but again, this is him giving you a window into the self. Hatred seems too strong a word, but just self-loathing maybe that he has for himself. That he would make that kind of observation, because that's what's great about these scenes in the movie when he turns to the camera, because you've just experienced these scenes, but he is now looking back on these scenes with a different point of view, which is what we do when we get older, right? We look back on things we did and we go, oh, that's what was going on with me. Oh, geez, I wish I'd known that. I'd had a better response or reaction in that moment. And so I think that's what he's saying to us in that moment as well about the whole situation, which of course connects back to what he just had with Annie in the bed.
I feel like you and I have talked about this before, and maybe this idea, maybe I got this idea from you. I don't remember, but like the idea that to some degree, when we are building relationships, romantic or friendship or otherwise, we are looking for mirrors that reflect ourselves back to ourselves.
Yes.
Is this?
Well,
Yeah.
it's more a matter of we choose the partners that reinforce the conversations that we have about ourselves to ourselves.
Yes.
That is what I learned in therapy. And that one was like cracked my mind open. I had no idea that was the thing. And it made me realize that I'd been picking so many partners that were bad for me because I hated myself and they represented that back to me. And then I would get mad at them for reinforcing the things I was mad at myself for feeling about myself. So it was very much a wheels within wheels situation. I had to break that pattern, and thankfully I did. Or else I wouldn't be with Lindley now.
So this joke of not wanting to belong to any club that would have me as a member, I think it's related to that because I think what Alvy is doing is that because he has that wonderful combination of tremendous arrogance. He thinks he's right about everything and tremendous self-loathing, Yes. And so then when he goes to other people, he's telling them, and these people think he's awesome. Like Annie thinks Alvy's awesome when they start. I bet Allison thinks he's pretty awesome when they start. And he's going, let me convince you how not awesome I am, so that you can reflect back to me, because I want to convince you of this image of myself. And then once I see how you see me the way I want you to see me, then I don't want to be a member of this club anymore. Yeah.
And it's always because I did this. I did exactly what he did, and it's a sliding scale of how active you want to be in creating that. Because I think what Alvy's doing is his passive-aggressive way of doing it. And other people have aggressive ways of doing it, like not showing up, not calling, disappearing, for ghosting. These are these things that people do that are much more active in the way that they're showing they're showing you that they want you to hate them. But what Alvy is doing is much more of the passive-aggressive kind of approach to it, where eventually she gets exasperated and he gets to say, why did she leave me? And all of this kind of stuff. He gets to play the victim about it while also being the one who caused it to happen, because he can't accept blame for it. Well, it's very complex.
And it reinforces his own view of himself. See, they dumped 100%. Me. I am a horrible person that everybody is against and nobody could possibly love.
Right. But yet he keeps going back to the well.
He does. Because it's such small portions. And he needs the eggs.
He needs the eggs.
And as I think we've cracked, at least to some degree, a few of the character flaws that haunt Alvy Singer, I think this is a good time to end part one of our exploration of Annie Hall. Of course, John and I shared a lot of stuff, and we'd love to hear do you see yourself in Alvy Singer or in Annie Hall? Do you think a lot about how people communicate in relationships or the negative feelings we have about ourselves that we bring out into the world? If you do, maybe you should leave us a comment on our Facebook page. Just do a search for the Cine-Files, or on X at Cine_Files. The Cine-Files podcast is how to reach us on Instagram. And of course, you can buy or stream Annie Hall along with every other movie we've ever reviewed on Cine-Files.net. You can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. If you're on a place that takes comments or reviews, we'd love to see them. And if you want to reach me, it's SR Morris on Twitter, SR Morris1 on Instagram. John, how would they reach you?
You can always reach me at The Rocha Says on all social media platforms, and head on over to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/John Rocha Says, where we do content almost every day on the channel, talking about all things going on in the world of entertainment and other subjects as well.
And if you want to listen to shorts on the Netflix Warner Brothers deal, or possibly a potential short on the things that make us feel guilty, you could do that on patreon.com/the Cine-Files, or by subscribing through Apple Podcasts. And I think that's it for this week. We'll be back next time to continue our exploration of Woody Allen's Annie Hall.